Here is one of those TikTok live streams. The topic of discussion here is why are Pan Africans causing harm in the Black community? So, this is not really a question. This is a group of Black Americans, maybe FBAs, I don't know, that are implying that other Black or African Americans that push the Pan African ideology are causing harm to the Black community. I don't think that is a fair question. I like to look at this from a more centrist position before I add my inputs to the conversation. But when the topic is already framed like this, I don't think I'm going to get the kind of discussion that I'm longing for on these TikTok panels that I still haven't been able to come across any so far.
They didn't. They was not here for it. They weren't
Okay, you
here for
just
the
gotta
civil
talk over.
rights
Go ahead.
movement. No, I'm just saying. Since you
Can
don't
I
know,
ask him one
Hold
question
on.
though?
This panel going all every which way, and it's overstimulating me. One at a time. Who was talking?
Ishmael.
Go ahead, Ishmael. Land your plane.
I'm responding to him because he said I didn't explain how it affect us, but just the black and brown thing as a whole, that literally embodies Pan-Africanism. Just because they don't stamp Pan-Africanism, they might not stamp racism on something we know is racism. You might stamp Pan-African.
All right, who next?
Okay, yeah. Oh,
Go
my
ahead.
bad.
A new person.
My bad. Somebody would call it.
Hey, what's up,
It
purple?
promotes that black and brownness. It promotes. It's all the same thing. It's just different lingo,
Okay,
Okay,
different
Ishmael.
jargon.
Ishmael,
can
we
y'all
finna
share
go
the
to the
I don't know
next
stage?
what.
Because I
person.
would like to
Hold your thought. Hold your thought. We'll come back to you. ATPTV.
Hey, Copper Cutie. Shout
Hey,
out
how
to
you doing? Great rising.
the Kingdom Rising. So listen, Pan-Africanism, the question of how it harms is, I don't think that's not the only perception. It's how has it helped? And it hasn't helped because most of the time the ideology is only specifically speaking about how to benefit people from a diaspora position in
I want to, explain a few things here. So, first of all, Pan Africanism is an ideology. Okay. So, ideologically, you can look at things like, if, for example, a political ideology, right? A political ideology would be being liberal, being conservative. Is that intended to help anybody outside of you? Usually, that's not what it is. This is a self practicing ideology, and people have different interpretations of it. So, being a person that lives a lifestyle shaped by that ideology is not intended to benefit the masses.
people who come from continental Africa. Whereas in the United States, here, when people are coming over here, that ideology does not transfer, even though it started here in the United States, it's not, there's no reciprocity, meaning
Yeah, that's the whole point because it's individualistic and people can choose to practice it or not. There's a lot of Africans that don't believe in Pan Africanism. Then what you're expecting just can't happen.
in legislation or in the embodiment of economics, even when what was the guy that created Kwanzaa? He was creating that to bring some awareness, not just globally, but bring it here, starting here. It didn't transfer into layman economics for us to actually benefit from. You do not see a general amount of people saying, hey, I want to get behind Negroes, I want to get behind this in this country, and whatever the needs are that they're pushing for legislation and law, for position of power or authority. They do not push that here. They push literally getting other groups of people in under this one banner that does have evidence of showing that they utilize the oppression of people in America, descendants here in America, for the benefit of themselves. And then they send their monies back to their own countries, or they start to say, hey, we need to do more mission trips and go out to Africa. We need to travel more. Black Americans don't have culture. We start to hear all.
Okay, so the latter part, Black Americans don't have culture. I think you guys have heard me talk about this. I think that is wrong. It's usually, I've only heard those conversations in the context of two people fighting over something or angry at each other, and then they go there. So it's kind of perceived as an insult, not necessarily factual. Of course, you have a culture. Culture is a way a group of people live. So if you have some identifying things that you do as a community that you're known for, then that embodies what your culture is. That is generally not true. So we're going to set that aside. But what she said doesn't also answer the question. Does any of what she said address if Pan Africanism is helping or harming the Black community? It's not supposed to, it's an individualistic ideology. And this is, I picked this up because I wanted to be very factual, okay? It's a global movement and ideology, and the aim was unifying people of African descent, fostering solidarity, promoting economic, social, and political progress to eliminate colonialism, because at the time, these African countries were under colonial rule and systemic racism, which was applicable to the Africans that were enslaved in the Caribbean, Latin America, and the Americas. Okay, the main goal here was unity and liberation, because we needed that liberation, uniting Africans and the diaspora to eliminate colonialism, white supremacy, which, we can have a agreement or disagreement about that term, and neo-colonialism. So these were the foundations of this. Okay, political and economic power, creating a stronger, self-reliant Africa. The emphasis was on Africa. Why? Because it was such a vast continent, known as the motherland of all the Blacks, but it was heavily influenced and heavily occupied. So the goal was that a liberated Africa would serve as grounds for all Africans or the people of African descent to be able to return home, some type of a repatriation. That was the goal. And then also global solidarity. So when there are global issues, that all these African nations and the Caribbean and Blacks in America would come together to support, to do things that supports or helps the global Black cause. Okay. And then there were aspects of this. I think this is where the lady refers to this as don't have culture thing. It was cultural reclamation, because the overall proclamation was that since you were from Africa, then some of your culture was taken away from you, and this would be an opportunity to reclaim certain aspects of it. It didn't mean that you should become Africans overnight, but you'd be able to reclaim some of the lost cultures if you are interested in it. It wasn't a forceful act, right? I'm not telling you to wear fugu and kente in downtown Houston just because you went to Ghana. How is any of this designed to hurt Black Americans? I don't see it. The problems that has been talked about lately is black men and women who discovered Africa or who found grounds in Africa use that use that as an opportunity to steal from other Black people in the diaspora. This is where a lot of the conflicts came from. They use the needs of Africa to say, hey, we're going to Africa to do this project for the Africans to help them out. And then you find that after 2 years of donating $700,000, nothing is built, and people got frustrated, and that those frustrations are ongoing to this very day, like Dr. Umar and all these other guys that you guys talk about.
Tropes of things that aren't true. It's almost the embodiment of bringing in how Marcus Garvey came about and what he was doing when he was here, and it's like the perpetual cycle. And so now you start to see with all people from different walks of life repeating the same rhetoric, but they have no evidence of them actually building in Black American communities, pushing Black American authority and also identity around the descendant culture that's governed by our law. They do not do that. As a matter.
Well, here's the thing too. Black immigrants that come to America cannot do that because the overwhelming majority of us we've had there's been a lot of hostility towards us since we came here. Now this is our story. Again, when I say our story, people don't want to dismiss it, but this is our story. There's been a bit of hostility towards us. Okay, it didn't start with the Tariqs. It's always been there, but this is why a lot of people just like for me, for instance, right? It doesn't affect me because I just don't live around that. So it has completely no implications on me whatsoever. But also, you have to understand when if your communities are not safe, if the images and the things that we find here are very difficult to work with, if the community is overwhelmingly toxic, if there's all these social issues for Africans that are majority conservative people, they want to stay away from that. They don't want their kids to have the same issues that are occurring overwhelmingly in black communities in America. They want to stay away from that. So a lot of these are protectionary. They're doing this to protect themselves and the future of their children. If we showed up and your communities were safe, your communities were more open and welcoming, in a few suburban towns, that has proven to be true. Where if it's safer here, like here in DeSoto, there's a very cordial coexistence between Africans and Black Americans right here south of Dallas. So we have to start with safe communities first before we talk about these guys come here and they don't integrate with us. And there has to be a welcoming culture that exists in Black America for this to happen. It doesn't exist currently. So that should have been the foundations that you set up for these guys to feel welcome, the same way we do it when you visit us in Ghana. Only that is perceived as, oh, we're doing it because we need some money from you. It's not always like that. There are people that do it because of your money, but most people are going to be very welcoming. It's a very welcoming culture. Another thing that one of my subscribers brought about on one of our live streams, she said that with the other groups like the Caribbean and Latin America, these people run countries. They have power, they have influence, they can shape policy. They are on the global stage. That's not the case for Black America because this is a multinational, multiracial society that is heavily managed and controlled by the white majority. And that means that you don't have your currency, you don't have your cities, you don't have a lot of things that you control in order to shape policy to deal economically with African nations. We're talking about nation to nation collaboration. That cannot work with blacks in America and Canada and Europe because these are heavily westernized societies and they are heavily controlled by the white majority class. So that presents a challenge to the whole notion of Pan-Africanism. But that doesn't also mean that you can practice it socially, which I think is what should have been, a very social system where you embrace cultures on both sides, at least the positive elements of each other's culture. That would be a great point to start from, But if you assume that we're just gonna walk into like active war zones in the name of Pan-Africanism, we're not gonna do that. It's just you got to prepare the ground for it to even be safe for these guys to operate in these communities, in the cities and states that, like on the East Coast, the DMV area, where it's in some places, not all, not Baltimore, but in other cities where it's been safe, like Bowie, you see a lot of integration happening in those communities.
In fact, they usurp it so that we won't benefit and say, hey, if you start to say that you're a descendant, you're Black indigenous, or you start to want to find out who your family is, then the conversation becomes, why are you guys being divisive? Why do you want to separate yourself?
No, it shouldn't be seen that way. It shouldn't be seen that way. That's what I'm saying. Like, looking at this from a position of there's some unity that has to be forged by any means, that's not true. And that's not divisive. The divisiveness we're talking about is you calling your other African brother a booty scratcher, of you looking down on him, of you calling, using some of his features, oh, your large nose, your big lips, like literally denigrating and insulting people, really direct insults people you don't even know, you've never come into contact with. Those insults, go back to your country, things like that. And that is completely these are the things that are driving all these conflicts. You're not showing them any love and any respect, and they won't show you any love and respect in return either, right? It's the same thing. So that is the division we're talking about. We're not talking about you being over there and handling your own business and being within your communities and us being within our communities. Like I said in one of my previous videos, Ghanaians hang out with Ghanaians, Nigerians hang out with Nigerians. We're not always all together like that, but sometimes we come together because we are all Africans, and even we are working on that. We're not even perfect yet. This is when Africans are starting to work together. This is the best stretch my entire life where I've seen Africans really legitimately working together, getting into intermarriages for the first time. This is when it's starting to happen. So even for us, this is a work in progress. We're not there yet. There are musicians that are collaborating in Africa. There are movie industries that are collaborating and putting things out. There are countries that are signing memorandum of understanding, removing visa restrictions. I mean, it's happening every day across Africa, right? So you have to give them time to be able to even do that within themselves first. And again, you're not a nation, so we can't do visa-free programs with Western people in the Black people in the West. We can't do that. But Ghana and Sierra Leone did extend citizenship pathways, which wouldn't have been possible if not for Pan-Africanism.
Why do you guys want to pull away from groups of people around the country, around the world, or around the country? And I'm thinking to myself, people in other nations are not a monolith, and they are not also a collective. And I always say this, the only 3 countries today that are trying to work as a unit in Africa is Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso.
That's a lie. If you remember, I made a serious video about this, that this is something that aligns with the rebel nature of the Western Black. They like to see governments that are perceived to be fighting against white people. You see, the real enemy here for them is a white man. And these 3 countries that she's mentioned are perceived to be giving it to France right now. That's the only thing. But there is no extreme development that is going on in these 3 nations. There isn't. There's still all 3 of them have a GDP combined lower than Ghana, which is a much smaller country, because Ghana is a democratic country. This is why you guys can take vacations in Ghana and nothing happens to you, and you can walk around Ghana because Ghana has that freedom. Why are you supporting coup regimes who have formed a pact simply just to get out of ECOWAS so that they don't get attacked by countries that are in the region due to how they took power? The only reason there's overwhelming Black American support for these 3 countries is because they are known to be sticking it to the white guys. That these countries are still riddled with terrorism. They are still poor. They are the poorest in the region. They don't have any significant mineral resources and economic output. That if they continue on this trajectory, they're not going to do well. You're not going to go invest there, and I'm not going to go invest there. But it sounds good. The narrative sounds good because it fits the profile of the Western Black. They like the rebellion nature of these 3 nations that have had, between all of them, over 10 coup d'etats in the last 40 years. More than 10 coup d'etats in the last 40 years. Where is that stability? What about supporting the nations like Senegal, who has had no coup d'etat, who is self-governing and is growing enormously in science, technology, engineering, and math? Where is their support? You won't support them because Senegal is the cool kid on the block, and they are seen to be more aligned with the West, the country that is more progressive. You don't want that. You want it to be more rebellious. This is why you're seeing them as the countries that practice Pan-Africanism. No, they're not. They left an entire block of ECOWAS, 30 plus countries. They left that for a 3 nation headed by coup leaders that are still riddled with terrorism. There was just a terrorist attack there last week in Ghana. 3 or 4 Ghanaians died trying to trade tomatoes in Burkina Faso, their primary export, which literally all goes through Ghana because they don't have a port. We can't even trade tomatoes with them right now. Under Traore, we can't trade tomatoes with them. And I don't hate Traore. I'm just telling you the truth as an African and as somebody from a neighboring country. So you read all this propaganda on Facebook and in the news, and you think that these are 3 nations that are doing so well to fight the West because it fits the profile of the Western Bloc. It is a rebellious culture, and they like that these countries are showing something to the West, even though they are isolating themselves from a bigger regional bloc. That regional bloc is a more powerful army who has shown that they can use military intervention to stop coup d'etats. This is why they signed a pact to get out of ECOWAS. They didn't want a repeat of the Gambia's Yaya Jammeh. That's the only reason why they did this. But Western people are not going to understand it. They're just going to support this government because it fits the narrative of the Western Bloc, even though it's very negative for Africa. It is negative. There is no African nation that has done well through a coup d'etat. The closest would have been my Ghana, but Ghana's economic expansion started after Jerry John Rawlings moved from a military leadership into a civilian government. That's the only way Ghana was able to become the economic powerhouse it's become. Senegal, the same thing. They didn't have any coups whatsoever, but they were able to grow in science, technology, engineering because of their progressive policies and their stability, economic stability. There's no tourism in Burkina Faso. Tourism numbers are down. There's a travel alert that is set out by almost every nation in the world that you can't even travel there. There's not much going on right now. And they need all these foreign reserves to be able to advance their economies. So you're over here supporting it because it fits the rebellious fight nature of the Western Bloc, because they are in perpetual fights. Even though this is not positive, it's not. Nobody wants to. If Ghana is run, if Ghana goes through a coup d'état right now, all the progress we've made over the last 30 years out the window. So if you've never lived in a country that has experienced a coup d'etat, you shouldn't even be supporting stuff like this. It's chaos.
So to me, you can't tell me those 3 nations is the entire continent of Africa or the countries out of 54, that only those 3 nations are now starting to realize that they have to do the work that Black Americans in this country have already done, and tell me that they are all one Pan-African group. They're not. And it's an ideology. So again, everybody doesn't even consider Black Americans a part of the diaspora only until we start to say, hey, no, we are a different group of people on a different landmass, and we have different cultures, law, language, regardless of English. Queen's English started from Britain in slavery. American English today has evolved, and there's studies that show it's.
I know the argument she's trying to make. If you're going to claim English, just create your own language. It's very doable. It's very possible. You guys can come together and create a language. You can use modern technologies and a little bit of historical context. Even if it's a derivative of the English language, you can create your own. Vernaculizing what has been there and existent in the different dimensions and different forms of the English language, it's not going to give you I know what you're trying to do. It's not going to give you that. It's not going to give you this distinct language, distinct set of last names that are going to make you completely different so that it can fall under the umbrella of what Tariq Nasheed is trying to create. The difficulty in doing that is you have to start building a language on top of it, and you have to come up with some new names. And that is going to totally erase your history. See, history is good or bad. It's one of the things that you have to not let go, because you speak English for a reason, because of what happened, right? So you don't, even though it's not palatable to most, it's still part of a history that you don't just want to let go and erase simply because you're trying to stick it to some group of Africans. It's not gonna work. If you really, really, really are serious about this, you can form a committee of leaders and start developing a language that only you and your community speak. It can be done. It might take a few generations, but it can be done because the Africans have done it. Like I said, in the 70s and in the 80s, a group of boarding school students in Ghana and in Nigeria created Pidgin English, which is, if you bring a British guy here and we speak Pidgin, they won't understand it. They may hear a word or two, but they will not understand. It's completely different language. Okay, so you can create that. You can create even completely something that has no connection to the English language. But to talk about the different dialects and accents and styles and modernizations and contributions of Black people to the English language, to mean that all of a sudden English is something that came from you, which is what I think she's trying to do. That's not gonna work. That's gonna be very laughable. It's gonna fit the same narrative that people have been talking about. Like you appropriate it and then you make it sound like you were the first to do it, and that's just not true. Even in England, the English is completely different from what it was, a couple years ago, a few hundred years ago, and it's being modified and modified every day as we go. There are some African words that are even making it to the Oxford Dictionary this very day. Okay, so I know what she's trying to do there. No, don't go there.
Totally different than what Britain brought years ago. They didn't even continue the same English. Matter of fact, they have a study that talks about the different dialects between the two. And if you don't know that information, you should probably research that and stop saying, oh, this is not an American English. It is actually, because no one's picking up the Queen's English and speaking like Shakespeare. They're actually talking like us. As a matter of fact, they're even evolving.
That's a lie. South Africans speak very different English than Zimbabweans. Australians and New Zealanders speak very different English. Even right here, the Canadians, different accents of the English language. Certain words, like in England, bloke, you guys don't use it here. Um, it's different in across West Africa, West Africa, completely different English from one country to the next. And definitely, America is not any different. Any British colony, the Indians in Southeast Asia also have a different accent, different connections, different words that go into it. That is what it's supposed to do geographically and regionally, for any language. This is why Spanish is different in Latin America than it is in Spain. Like vosotros is not said in Latin America, right? It's usted and ustedes. So it's going to be different with all the stuff that is happening culturally here and there. But you cannot claim English. Like, of all, this is ridiculous. Of all the things that you can do, don't just be rambling and saying things. There's, you got to be very serious with these things, because remember, white people have no breaks nowadays too. So when they hear talking points like this, they can look back and say, "What are these guys talking about? You sound crazy." you know, don't do the English. If you're really that concerned and worked up about languages, you can form a committee and start creating one.
Into AAVE, which is why the discussion around Black people in our dialect is such a big topic. So
Wouldn't call that evolving. That's just us taking the English language and
it's
make it.
evolving.
It
Okay.
evolved.
Like I
It didn't
said,
stay in one spot. Thank you,
it's
ATP.
not the same.
Thank you,
If they
ATP.
don't,
Thank you.
if UK is not speaking AAVE, then it's evolved, and it's evolved.
Yeah, so you see how you feel a few of them in the comments, on the panel, are trying to do exactly the same thing that I always push back on. It's like they're forcing so hard to make something possible that isn't the case. It's like they're forcing themselves so hard to claim something that is so ridiculous to claim. You cannot claim that, because the English language is completely going to is a very dynamic language. It's one of the most dynamic, English and Spanish, very dynamic languages that are going to be spoken differently everywhere you go. But we're not there in Ghana claiming. If you know how much damage we have done to the English language in Ghana, you have no idea. Like, we've done real damage to the English language in Ghana. Okay. In Nigeria, the same. But we're not over there claiming that we've done so much difference, the things to the English language, and all of a sudden our English is different and now we own the English language because it's evolved. No, that's not the case, man. You shouldn't do that. I mean, where are we going with this, man? What are you trying to do? Yeah. If white folks started claiming a piece of your culture like this, I'm sure you guys will not be. There will be protests all over the damn place. You know, these are the things that I struggle with. I really struggle with this. You know,
Involved here in
They're not
America.
African Americans. Why would he speak AV?
Still partaking in
What?
cultural
Ain't no
exchange of the
African
use of
American. Quit
Black
being up here
American
being
culture.
disrespectful.
Bubba, stop
I
being
We're
slow,
didn't.
calling
bro.
us
Yeah,
out our name
I
because
Stop,
didn't.
those are
I didn't.
political
stop.
constructs.
I really think. Listen. You can have
This
your
nigga like to
opinion.
argue for argument's sake.
Right. You can have your opinion, but
I wasn't arguing.
because I make a point, because I
Exactly.
make a
They just want to
point, and I secured my point with evidence,
Stop talking
does
while
not
she talking.
mean
Damn.
does not mean that it's wrong. It just means you don't like that point of the point, because again, it breaks down the fact that we are different people, and people don't like to hear that. I don't know why that is, but it's true. It is very much so.
And I'm staying on topic. Yeah, I'm arguing that it doesn't
Well, it
harm the
is.
black community.
It's on top. It says Pan-Africanism. Is Pan-Africanism helping or harming Black America? And so I would like evidence how Pan-Africanism has helped Black America today evolve into today and where we are. And how is it going to move us in the future? Because if you cannot prove that, it has not helped. And we're talking about under our three branches of government in the United States.
Yeah, I never argued that it even helped. I have to do my due diligence to find that out. But I was arguing that it's not harming us.
Yes,
And I
it
can't
is.
foreshadow. I'm not even a Pan-Africanist, first of all. But I can't foreshadow something that I haven't really seen implemented into
What's your
society.
ethnic?
yeah. How is an ideology gonna harm or hurt you if it doesn't promote violence? If it doesn't promote negativity? If it's just an ideology, you can subscribe to it or not subscribe to it. It's just like a YouTube channel. Listen to it, not listen to it. They are looking for a pathway to xenophobia. They're looking for a pathway to be able to say the nonsense that they've been saying on TikTok, and they are more concerned because Pan Africans in the West are Black Americans, so they are the same people. They can't tell them to go back to their home country, right? And these Pan Africans that are in the West have been really pushing back hard, and literally like really harder than even we have. Like they've been really on their asses. You see me react to a lot of their videos. They go hard, and they really like, because a lot of them are educated and a lot of them are learned and are well traveled. When they get on these panels, like, so this guy is not a Pan African, he said it, but if real Pan Africans get on these panels, it's usually silent. Like they can't, even Tariq Nasheed struggles with the debates with Pan Africans. That's why he doesn't like to go into spaces where there's a big cluster of Pan Africans who are Black Americans, because it's your own community, and they can just pick you out and just literally destroy you, right? Like they can destroy you point after point after point, and they really struggle with that. I see why they're making TikTok panels like this, to be able to see if there's a way they can tame the Pan Africans, because the Pan Africans have really like held the line for a lot of Africans and Caribbean people, and compared to us, they can call the Pan African Black Americans booty scratchers and all the all the BS that they throw at us. They can call them eating fufu and all the stuff they talk about us. They can't say that with the Pan Africans. And now that if you take away their possibility to punch, then it's very hard for them to argue. And if you really back them into a corner, they're gonna start talking about things like, what is your ethnicity? Where are you from? They start to try to undermine other African Americans who identify as Pan Africans, as if they are also part of the third class. They do that all the time. Trust me, I listen to these guys all day just for be able to do content like this. These videos are not sent to me. These videos are actually recorded by me. I go in there and I record these videos. And most of the times it doesn't even take me minutes to stumble across some stupidities. It's that easy on TikTok to find stupid.
Yes,
Like, what's your
but
background, bro?
Hold on.
I'm
Let me
African
answer.
American,
Let
Black
me answer
American,
him.
but
Let me answer him right quick
Then
I'm
we
about
African.
gonna
harming.
read
Hold on,
all
I'm
the
African
big
American,
Hold
brothers.
on,
Black
Copper.
American by way of South
Once he's
Carolina.
done, I want to answer him.
So
Once he's
the
finished. Go ahead,
Africanized
go.
them in a sense, like, you know what I'm saying. I understand that people disagreeing with y'all triggers you, but I mean, it's
Nobody's
TikTok,
triggering.
bro.
I'm
I told
not
everybody to
triggered,
stop
bro.
over
I'm not
talk.
triggered,
Bubba, I
bro.
don't do that. I told everybody to stop over talking so you can
Briscoe's
finish.
triggered on
Don't be emotional, my
How am
nigga.
I triggered if
no
I'm
one's no
asking you
one's
questions,
emotional. Just
bro?
the people muting you
Yo,
and
don't do that because I told
you
everybody to
know.
stop
I'm
talking
not
so you
even a
can land your
I
moderator.
plane.
I'm
got you. I
trying to
got
hear
you. I
Briscoe,
got you.
somebody.
just chill, because this is what he does, bro. Instead of having a conversation, you do that little petty Annie bullshit. Just finish your point, bro. Stop arguing.
No one's being petty, y'all. You know what I'm saying?
Bubba,
He said,
finish
"Bubba."
your point so I can respond to you.
Yeah. Okay. Did y'all hear what I said before? Yeah. I never argued that it was even helping. I guess I had to do my due diligence for that. But I made my point very clear. It's not harming us. I
Okay.
pointed out what's harming Black communities. I
Okay,
said
can I respond to
I
you about
said,
what's actually? Can I
okay,
respond to you how Pan
hold on. I
Africanism
said
is harming?
systemic racism is harming the Black
Okay, we're
community,
not
not
talking about.
Yeah, they want. We're gonna wrap this up. But if of all the things that happens in the black community, if Pan Africanism is one of the things that you believe hurts you, I think you got a lot more problem than anything else. Like, how is an ideology that fosters unity hurt you? Like, you're really neglecting all the really big problems out there to focus on a small minority. Just because you don't like a small minority of black immigrants that have moved to the US, all of a sudden you're going to hit the source of most of the hard work that your forefathers did, the MLKs, the Malcolm X's, and all these other guys, and all the work they've done over the years. You're just gonna shred it just because you don't like a small collection or group of immigrants that don't even amount to much in America when it comes to the numbers, which is a small minority. Come on, it's not a big deal. Move on from this bullshit that Tariq Nasheed has created and start working on real things and things that can really help you. Anyway, for those of you that are doing the match challenge, uh, I posted this on the community tab. This March, the March iteration of this, I kind of set it up to where we can have all groups. You can be white, Asian, Hispanic. I don't care what your background is. You can be part of this. You can be African, Black American, Caribbean. Don't give a damn. You can be part of this. You can be a woman, old, young. There's always something to learn as a community, so you can be part of this. This is absolutely free. There is no charge to be part of what we do here. We don't have any memberships. We don't have any affiliate links. We just do it on a voluntary basis. If you want to be part of it, you can be part of it. The book we're going to be reading this in March is Your Money or Your Life by Vicky Robin and Joe Dominguez. I just picked this up from the library, so I didn't even have to pay for it. Okay. If you want to buy one, I think it's like $10, or you can buy a used one, or you can go to your local public library and pick one up. I have an electronic version of it, but I'm just old school, man. I like to read. I like to read like this, so I'm gonna be reading this the old school way. I'll put a reading schedule out. We will meet twice next month to go through a discussion of what we've learned so far, and we'll try to implement most of the things that we're going to learn in this book in our lives, right? So this is why we're doing it. So if you want to be part of it, I will just put it on a community tab under that post that I made, and then towards the beginning of March I will collect names and emails, and then send you the links to some of our meetings and the things that we're going to be talking about. Okay. So yeah, do go grab your copy. I don't have an affiliate link. I don't want to take anybody's money. I don't want to make any money off of anybody. If you want to support the channel, just watch the videos. Even if it's boring, watch it. Okay. Your 0.000 cent for watching it can be helpful to the channel. And it also allows me to be able to deliver these self-improvement things to a wider audience absolutely free of charge. Okay. So I'll see you guys in the next one.